Is reincarnation real? And if so, why don't you remember your past lives? We're going to explain why right now, rationally and logically, without the nonsense. Many New Age, mystical systems, and Eastern traditions teach that reincarnation has to do with karma, leading an ethical life, or detachment. There are other systems like Gnosticism that says that this reality is actually a cosmic prison created by an evil being that they call the Demiurgos, who traps souls here. So how do you know what's true, what isn't, what's bullshit, what's crazy? Well, let's take a look at this logically and rationally, and most importantly, explain if reincarnation is true at all. Why don't you remember your past lives? Before you can understand why reincarnation occurs and how it occurs, you have to understand what existence is at all. The best way to understand reality is as a shared mathematical dream, or as a multiplayer video game. Now, of course, this isn't actually a multiplayer game, but it's a great way to understand existence when you're just coming across these ideas for the first time. This is not a physical reality. This is a mental reality of mathematical patterns. In philosophy, this is known as mathematical idealism. This shared dream is based on mathematical pattern. Why is that? Because mind is frequency patterns, and so all of reality is based on mathematical sinusoidal waves. This is really important to understand when it comes to the concept of reincarnation, especially when we're looking at it rationally and logically, because we must always keep in mind that existence follows rational, logical, mathematical patterns, because this is a mathematical reality of mind. So, in order to understand this better, we must realize that we aren't our bodies. These physical bodies that we inhabit are simply avatars. What we truly are eternal minds. And what are eternal minds? Eternal minds are systems of mathematical energy, mathematical patterns. So each one of us, what we truly are, is a mathematical entity, a system of frequency patterns. That's what each one of us is actually. These bodies are simply avatars, and we as eternal minds will link to these avatars in order to explore in the physical world. But remember, the physical world isn't actually physical, it just seems that way from our perspective inside of a body. Just like when you are inside of a dream, it seems very real and physical when it's actually taking place within the mind at all times. I want you to go back to the moment before space and time began, right? The moment right before the Big Bang. At this point, the multiplayer game hadn't been generated yet. In other words, the shared dream hadn't started yet. There was only the code, so to speak. Everything was pure mathematical pattern, but the pattern hadn't arranged itself yet to generate the game world. The Big Bang was the moment that these mathematical patterns, sine and cosine waves to be specific, went from symmetry to asymmetry, or in phase to out of phase. This resulted in the generation of the extended physical world, or this shared dream that we all inhabit together. But remember, at all times, this is a 100% mathematical reality based on mathematical frequency patterns. So at the moment of the Big Bang, the game is in its most basic state. It's a very simple game. There aren't even organisms interacting yet. So imagine what would happen if you were playing this game. Well, there would be no avatars to link to. You couldn't really do much. But imagine this sea of mathematical energy, the coding, so to speak, interacting and combining and evolving. The game is gaining in complexity, and eventually the game becomes so complex that it starts to generate avatars, or organisms that you as a mind can link to. So when the game gains enough complexity, a creature will exist to which you can then link to and insert yourself into the game. You see, this is what incarnation is. You are inserting yourself into the game world, the shared dream, through a bodily avatar. A bodily avatar is exactly what allows you to interact in this shared dream, in this multiplayer game that we exist in together. And when your bodily avatar dies, you as an eternal mind doesn't die. It's simply the avatar that perishes. What happens when the avatar perishes is that you as a mind will simply link to a new avatar for reinsertion into this game world, this collective mathematical dream. And what this is being born. The process of being born is you being reinserted, or if you want to use the word reincarnation, reincarnating into this world. So what is the point at all? Why do we reincarnate, and why don't we remember past lives? Well, first of all, why we reincarnate at all is because this existence is, remember, all based on mathematical patterns. And these patterns, these frequencies, are evolving. This is a game that is constantly gaining in complexity. Look at evolution, look at history, and see the progress and complexity that is being gained. Things aren't staying the same, it is always a movement. So this is a mathematical world that is constantly gaining in complexity. And what you are as an eternal mind is a unit of mathematical frequency patterns that is gaining in complexity itself. So you, just like reality, is constantly evolving and trying to increase its symmetry and increase its optimization. Reality and existence is all about evolution and increasing your optimization, increasing your evolution, your power. And guess what? When you are inserted into this game world, this allows you to explore and learn and grow and evolve. So what's the point of a game? A game is to go to the next level. It's to level up. It's to gain experience points. So you as a mind, when you connect to an avatar, are constantly learning and growing and evolving. This is adding to the evolution of you as a mind. So the purpose of reincarnation is not about being a good person, it's not about karma, it's not about any of that. It's all about leveling up your character. It's about gaining experience. It's about learning, growing, and evolving. All of existence is about evolution. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche said that reality was all about will to power, constantly gaining more and more power. And to a large extent, he was correct. Reality is about will to power, but when understood correctly, it's about mathematical optimization, mathematical evolution, increasing the symmetry and the perfection of your internal mathematical data, your internal mathematical frequency patterns. So reincarnation has nothing to do with karma. It has nothing to do with following some kind of moral code. It's about evolution and growth. Karma is a dangerous concept for a couple reasons. For one, it's impossible to define. Everyone argues over what it actually is, and there's no way to define how it would work, under what mechanism it operates. There's no rationality behind it. Now, the other reason why it's dangerous is because karma says you get what you deserve. So if, let's say, for example, a woman is beaten, karma says that, hey, that's just what she deserves. She was bad in a past life, so that's what she gets. This is a very dangerous mindset to have. Many also teach that you need to escape reincarnation by detaching from life. And this is the worst thing that you could possibly do, because reality is about evolution and growth. And if you detach, you are not evolving and growing. You're not playing the game, so to speak. So if you don't make any progress in this level, you're just gonna keep playing the same level over and over again. It's all about leveling up, gaining experience, growth, and evolution. You are constantly on a path of evolution. And what's the end point? What's the omega point? The goal of this? The highest point of your evolution is to evolve into a god, and all of us taken together to evolve into the absolute, the universe itself, conscious of itself. And you're never going to evolve into a god if you detach from life. That is the exact opposite of throwing yourself into life so that you can evolve, grow, and level up. So why don't you remember your past lives? Well, remember, you are not your body. Your body is just an avatar. What you truly are is an eternal mind. And you, as an eternal mind, are a container of mathematical frequency patterns. And this is where all the information associated with you is stored. All your memories, all your experiences exist as mathematical patterns within you as a mind, not your bodily avatar, not your brain. Your brain is what allows you to access the contents of your mind. I want you to think of your brain as hardware and your mind as like the cloud. So your brain, the hardware, so to speak, will allow you to access the data of your mind, the cloud, so to speak, but they are not the same thing. If you are on a computer, you can use that hardware to access all the data in the cloud. But if your computer gets destroyed, it will no longer be able to access the data on the cloud, but that data is perfectly fine. It doesn't matter what happens to your computer itself. It doesn't matter what happens to the hardware. The data in the cloud remains fine. Well, same thing in this existence. Your avatar, which contains your brain, can access the information of your mind, but if your avatar is damaged, it will mean that it may not be able to access the information in the cloud, in your mind. But that information remains intact nonetheless, and it always will. So if part of your brain is damaged, you may not be able to access some of your memories. Now, that doesn't mean that your memories are stored in your brain. It means that you are unable to access portions of the information in the cloud. So, there is a link between your body and the mind, but they're not the same thing. So the reason why that you cannot remember your past lives is because the body acts as a filtering mechanism for the information in your mind. All that data gets filtered out, and you only use a small portion, a small percentage of it. So the brain is a filtering mechanism that reduces the amount of information that you have access to. This is why you can't remember your past lives, but you might be thinking, why? Why would the brain do that? It doesn't make any sense. Wouldn't it be better to be able to remember your past lives? Well, I want you to go back in time and think about the very early stages of evolution. At this part of evolution, at this part of the game, the only thing that is important is physical survival, right? That's what needs to happen at that stage. So I want you to imagine two creatures. Now imagine that one creature has access to all the information in the universe, and it can reflect on what all the electrons across all the galaxies are doing at every moment. So imagine that creature just sort of sitting there, being inundated and reflecting on all this information. Now imagine another creature that is just tuned into the physical world, and that's it. It has no access to this superfluous information, but only is focused on the physical world. Well, that creature would easily kill and eat and consume the creature that is preoccupied with just this complete and total influx of data. And so due to evolution, the species that filtered out all of that data would flourish and multiply, whereas the species that had access to that data would be wiped out. So evolution, to make biological survival possible, would ensure that the creatures that were focused on survival and filtered out all that extra data were the ones that propagated. Aldous Huxley said, To make biological survival possible, mind at large has to be funneled through the reducing valve of the brain and nervous system. What comes out at the other end is a measly trickle of the kind of consciousness which will help us to stay alive on the surface of this particular planet. So the reason why that you don't remember your past lives is because evolution has ensured that our bodily avatars, our brain, filters out unnecessary data so that we can focus on survival in the physical world. However, now we are at a stage of evolution where we can think beyond just basic survival, and we can focus on gaining reconnection to the mental realm and getting access to the data within our minds. And that's what we are all about. We are about making the unconscious conscious so that we may evolve and reach the pinnacle of our evolution. So reincarnation has nothing to do with karma or being a good person or detachment or anything like that. It's all about evolving and growing because this is a mathematical existence and we are seeking to gain more and more powerful expressions of our mathematical data. This is a game that we are all playing together. So my friends, let's reach the next level together. This was all explained in a short amount of time because let's face it, the attention span on social media is 0. But if you want to learn more, watch this video right here and this one as well. If you enjoy my work, make sure you subscribe right now, leave a comment below, and consider supporting on Patreon so that I can bring you even higher quality content. A big shout out to all the supporters. My name is Morg and I am Hyperion. Ad Astra, to the stars.